War in the Middle Ages was not just about swords, armor, or glory. It was a test of the human mind that few could survive unchanged. Knights spent years surrounded by blood, fear, and exhaustion, and those experiences slowly broke them from the inside. The honor they fought for often turned into nightmares they could never escape. Over time, the same courage that made them heroes on the battlefield pushed many of them toward madness when the fighting finally stopped. Number 1. The brutal reality of endless warfare. War for a medieval knight was not a single grand test. It was a season that never ended. From early youth, he trained to read a field, keep formation, and strike on command. Once he entered service, years blurred into campaigns, marches, and sudden clashes that could end a life in minutes. Most set-piece battles were short and violent, yet the preparation and aftermath stretched for weeks. The stress did not come only from charging lines and flying arrows. It came from long days of waiting, from nights without real sleep, and from the constant thought that tomorrow could be the day steel found a gap in the mail. A knight woke to the smell of wet leather and smoke, checked his gear, and scanned the horizon out of habit. That routine built a hard shell on the outside, but it kept his nerves locked on high alert. The body learns what you teach it. If you teach it to expect danger, it will look for danger even in silence. Daily conditions wore men down as much as any duel. Armor spread weight across the body, yet it still strained the back and neck on long rides. Helmets trapped heat and dulled hearing. Blows to the head were common and often ignored if no blood showed. Food in the field was heavy and monotonous, which slowed recovery. Water was not always clean. Camps mixed wounded men, fresh recruits, horses, and waste in tight spaces, so infection spread quickly. The mind cannot settle when the body is constantly aching, thirsty, or feverish. Many knights learned to push through pain, but pushing through became their only tool, even when rest was what they needed most. Battle itself delivered shocks that lingered. Formations collapsed into close combat, where vision narrowed and breath shortened. A rider could trample a man without seeing his face. Friends disappeared in the press and were later found in the mud. After a fight, the field was not a heroic picture. It was noise, wounded animals, broken limbs, and the smell of iron and decay. Cleaning gear meant scrubbing pieces that reminded you where you had been. Those images returned at night when the camp went quiet. Men woke to the sound of their own pulse and reached for weapons they had already put away. Hypervigilance felt like safety, so they held on to it even when it kept them from sleeping. The rhythm of medieval warfare kept stress high between battles as well. Sieges could last months and turned into slow, grinding contests. Archers harassed from walls. Disease ate through the lines. Commanders demanded sorties to test the defenses and to prove resolve. Ransom rules and booty promises pulled men into more risk than sense required. Under feudal custom, a knight owed service to his lord and needed to show courage in public view. Everyone watched, from squires to rival captains, and no one wanted to be named a coward. That fear of shame did its own damage. It pushed men to fight when they were spent and to hide tremors, nightmares, or sudden anger. With no language for trauma, people called it divine trial or moral weakness. In reality, it was the normal human mind trying to live in conditions that never let it stand down. Number 2. The weight of faith, guilt, and honor. Knights lived under a constant mix of belief, duty, and fear. They were trained from childhood to fight, to serve their lord, and to live by the laws of God. Every action in battle carried both a practical and a spiritual meaning. When a knight killed, he wasn't only ending a life on the field. He was also forced to face the idea that he might be breaking one of God's commandments. This conflict followed many soldiers through every campaign. They were told by priests that their wars were holy, yet their eyes saw innocent people die. That confusion ate away at their sense of right and wrong. During the Crusades, this problem became even sharper. Knights believed they were serving the church, saving their souls by fighting unbelievers. But what they saw often didn't fit that story. Whole towns were wiped out, and the victims weren't always soldiers. Many who returned home carried guilt they didn't understand. There are accounts of knights spending years doing penance, fasting, or donating to monasteries in hopes of forgiveness. Some prayed for hours every day, while others fell into silence, unable to talk about what they'd done. Without the idea of mental health, guilt was treated as sin. A knight who couldn't find peace was told to pray harder, not to rest or heal. That advice made the guilt even heavier. Honor was another powerful force. A knight's reputation meant everything. To be seen as weak or disloyal could ruin his life. So even when they were mentally exhausted, they had to act fearless. They were expected to fight bravely, protect their allies, and never show fear or sadness. This expectation made it nearly impossible to admit when something was wrong. Many knights hid their emotions so deeply that they lost touch with them altogether. What looked like discipline on the outside was often just emotional numbness. They learned to ignore pain, grief, and fear because showing those feelings could destroy their standing. But the pressure didn't disappear. It built up quietly until their minds could no longer handle it. Another problem came from loyalty itself. Knights were bound to obey their lord, even if his orders were cruel or unfair. If a commander told them to destroy a village, they did it, even if it went against everything they believed in. That kind of obedience created deep moral conflict. When they saw the aftermath: burned homes, crying families, they couldn't erase those images. Some knights tried to justify it as the cost of war, but the mind doesn't forget. Over time, that contradiction between faith, honor, and violence started to tear them apart inside. Many medieval writings describe knights who couldn't sleep, who saw visions, or who believed demons followed them. In reality, they were struggling with trauma and guilt, but the church saw it as spiritual punishment. Confession and prayer were supposed to cleanse the soul, yet they rarely eased the pain. When peace finally came, these men didn't know how to live without the discipline of war. Their faith gave them rules, but it didn't teach them how to heal. They had fought for honor and God, but both had demanded more than any human mind could give. Number 3. The physical toll and the trapped mind. A knight's body paid a constant price that his mind could not ignore. Armor spread weight over the shoulders, hips, and spine, yet the load still strained every joint on long marches. The helmet narrowed vision and dulled sound, which forced the neck and eyes to work harder all day. Heat built up under layers of linen, mail, and plate, and the body lost water faster than the camp could supply. Dehydration made thinking slow and made tempers short. Hands cramped from gripping reins and weapons, and small cuts often turned into infected wounds that throbbed through the night. Pain became a steady background noise that never turned off, so sleep grew shallow and never truly restored strength. When the sun rose, the same cycle began again, with a stiff back and an aching head. Battle multiplied that stress. Blows that glanced off armor still shook the skull and rattled the brain. Falls from a horse slammed the body into earth that was packed hard by hooves and boots. A mace or poleaxe could transfer force through steel and leave no obvious wound, yet the rider would see stars and forget names for hours. After months and years, those hits added up. Memory slipped at the edges. Anger flared without warning. Light bothered the eyes, and noise felt like a knife. A man who once read the ground like a map now struggled to follow simple plans after a fight. That confusion frightened him, and fear turned into more tension, which fed the same loop he could not break. The camp environment wore him down between clashes. Food was heavy and salty, and fresh meat or greens were rare on long routes. Bad water led to stomach illness that drained energy and attention. Lice and fleas kept men scratching until skin bled, which opened the door to more infection. During a siege, the air filled with smoke, rot, and waste, and it was hard to breathe cleanly for even an hour. The senses never got a rest, so the nerves stayed wound tight even when the field was quiet. Many nights leaned on wine or strong ale to soften the edge, yet alcohol cut sleep quality and made the next day worse. With no effective treatment, healers bled patients, applied herbs, or advised prayer and rest that war schedules did not allow. Officers demanded speed and courage, and reputation punished anyone who asked for a pause. So men hid headaches, dizziness, and tremors until those signs became part of how they moved and spoke. Over time, the body taught the mind that danger was always near. A snapping twig sounded like a bowstring. A slammed door felt like a charge. Muscles tensed before the head knew why. That is how the physical grind locked the mind into ready mode long after the battle ended. The armor that once promised safety became a habit the man could not shake because he felt naked without it. Peace did not feel peaceful. It felt like a trap where the next blow could come from anywhere. Number 4. When glory turns to madness. Knights were raised to chase honor and praise, yet long wars turned those promises into pressures that cracked the mind. Glory sounded simple in a hall full of music and banners. It felt different on a field that stank of sweat, fear, and blood. After many campaigns, a veteran discovered that the stories about clean duels and shining courage did not match his memories. He had learned how to survive through aggression, quick decisions, and a steady gaze, and those habits did not switch off when the trumpets went silent. Peace asked him to be gentle, patient, and present at home. His nervous system stayed tuned to threat, so a door slam could jolt him upright, and a crowded market could feel like an ambush. People around him expected gratitude and calm. He felt wired and alone. The gap between public honor and private turmoil grew wider with each year. Reputation made recovery harder. A knight's name opened doors, paid ransoms, and secured work, so he guarded it like treasure. Admitting fear or confusion risked being seen as unreliable. Many men hid bad nights and short tempers and said they were fine. They drank to ease the edge or trained until exhaustion to chase the old sense of control. Both choices dulled pain for a moment and then sharpened it the next day. Some drifted into mercenary companies because fighting felt familiar and clear. The rules on a contract field were harsh but simple, and that simplicity offered relief from the messy talk of feelings, guilt, and home. Loss of identity pushed the spiral. From page to squire to mounted warrior, life had a ladder with clear steps. War cut that ladder in half once age. Wounds or new weapons reduced a man's value. He might still wear a sword, but he no longer fit the role he had trained for since childhood. Estates needed managers, not raiders. Towns wanted order, not feats of arms. Tournaments gave a taste of the old rush, yet they also reawakened pain, rivalry, and the habit of masking fear. The mask worked in public and shattered in quiet rooms where sleep would not come. Religious and legal systems offered little help. Confession eased conscience for a day, but did not calm a racing mind. Courts policed violence, but could not see the reasons boiling underneath. Families tried to support veterans, and often faced anger they did not cause. Without language for trauma, people used words like curse, possession, or melancholia. Those labels turned a health problem into a moral failure and pushed men deeper into isolation. Over time, the shine of glory became a lens that distorted everything. The veteran could no longer trust his calm moments because he waited for them to break. He could not trust praise because he knew the cost behind it. That constant doubt is how bright ideals twist into a private storm, and how a life built on honor can slide into madness when the war never really leaves.